afternoon, everybody. This is Ekta Saigal Malhotra at the Motherhood Club Talk Show. Like always, we have a mother here to share her journey with us. Today's mother is not just a mother, but she is a coach who coaches so many of us, be it children, be it adults, be it men, be it women. She is a certified coach and she finds it extremely uh, passionate. What should I say? She's very, very passionate about coaching people. She works with children, like I said, she works with adults. And the topic that she has chosen today is the coaching approach towards parenting. There is a lot that our mother today is going to share with us. And ladies, the mother today with us is Himani Jaiswal. Himani, welcome to the show. And, I am looking forward to hear Himani's journey because, like I said, that not only is she a mother of a 17-year-old boy, but she's also a coach and she also helps a lot of parents to change their thought process and their ways of parenting. So let us hear from Himani how she was, how she is today, and what all happened all throughout the journey of motherhood and before that. So, Himani, once again, a very warm welcome. Uh, Please introduce yourself in your own word because you alone can do justice to yourself and your accomplishments. And please share, what is it that you mean by having a coaching approach towards parenting? So, over to you, Himani.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ekta. Thank you so much for firstly inviting me here and to give an opportunity to be able to talk to all of you. And yes, as you said, this is a topic which is very, very close to my heart. Parenting is close to our hearts, definitely as mothers, that is for sure. And yes, the approach towards parenting also. So yes, of first a little bit about myself. You've already shared about me as a coach, and that I think is something that professionally, of course, is there. But I would like to share a little more of the journey as a mother. Yes, as you mentioned, my son, he's 17 now, and he's literally a gift from the universe because there was very, very little chances of actually being able to give birth to a healthy child because of certain health conditions that I had at that time, and they were not likely to get better. So yes, he came as this whole gift from the universe, saying that okay, this is something. It's a mission for your life that would be a mother and would probably take this journey forward. So I've always considered from day one that there is a special reason why he's here, why I'm here, and why I have been given this responsibility as well as this gift. And also to add to that a little bit, that I lost my mother when I was quite young. I was just a teenager. And I always felt that if I am given this gift of parenting, then I would do all possible things that I can to be able to give the best, parenting to my child. And I think that journey continued, and my son came into this world. And as I started out like all of us do, and had some idea about what parenting is, and had less idea about okay, what is it that we do when we face a challenge. And but of course, there are well-meaning friends, well-meaning books, and people that you could turn to. And The one thing that I always felt when I was, when raising up Nalin, that's my son's name, uh, that was the fact that that he is a slightly, he's an introvert, and he's somebody who's had some challenges in the initial years of school, not because of his, things like academics or whatever. He's a very, very bright child by God's grace. But because of the fact that probably if there was a teacher asking something in class, then he would, out of his nature, he would not probably raise his hand, or things like that. So as a typical parent, I was feeling very, very nervous that would he be missing out on life? Would he be missing out on the opportunities of life because of his nature, because of the way he is? And this world is so competitive. How will he manage? What will happen? So these were my
The typical
concerns.
fears a mother would generally have.
Yeah, yes, and they were consuming me. While at the same time, I find it quite ironical because at the same time, I had been investing all my life. I'm actually much of an introvert myself, so I could see like a mirror reflection, and I mean, I know whatever I have done for my life, I've managed to do all right, and I'm happy with it. That's what matters at the end of the day. But the same logic doesn't apply to your children. You obviously want them to do better than yourself, and you feel at that time that maybe there's something that I can do, that he kind of moves out of this shell, and which is what I had thought, that this is shell that he's created for himself, and I can do something about it. While at the same time, results showed in school and things at places academically that he's doing brilliantly. So it was always a very ironical situation, that okay, what is it that one should do, what is it that one should not do. I have been in the field of learning and development for about 26 years now, 25, 26 years. Started off pretty young, and coaching came to me around 14 to 15 years back. I think almost as old as Nalin, a little younger than that. And in the beginning, I couldn't relate it a lot to my parenting. It was just like, okay, I'm starting a journey here and something is happening here. Uh, yes, a bit of what the science or the understanding that I got in the beginning was very empowering for me to understand as a individual, that okay, if this is what it is, then this is how I can shape the life of not only myself, but my child also, and a lot of other people. So the gap, the whole story was not very clear at that time, but I was trying to see, okay, this is empowering, there is something in this, I can get something out of this, what at that time was not clear. So that journey took some time, and I think what I started to do was to use very principles of coaching, which I couldn't just probably explain in one or two lines so that it's clearer to everybody who's listening. Is that coaching essentially is about trusting the potential of the other person, believing that we are complete and whole, and there is nothing to be fixed in us, you know. And we just need to sometimes uncover the potential of the person, which may be blocked because of the fact that I may not be seeing it, or I may be too busy doing something else, or there may be something stopping me from seeing that. And now, when I started connecting the dots to children, by of course, talking to a few people who are already working in this field, and some very, very good work they have done in it, and it started becoming so much clear that yes, this is the way that I can actually work with my child. And if I work in this way, the little experiments that I did when I started working with him just worked wonders. And they started to show me a path that okay, if this is what I continue doing with him, and actually I'm not doing, he's doing it. He's the one who's actually being he's the protagonist of the story. I'm just using understanding this whole theory through him. But the more I worked with him as a 7-year-old, that time I think he was 6 or 7, and the more I saw the results, so yeah, it was actually magical.
So,
It was
Himani, I mean, it's very nice to hear that that coaching really makes a huge change when it comes to parenting. And I'm completely believing every word that you're saying. But it would be very nice if you could share some examples that
sure,
the first six
sure.
years of your parenting, how you were probably the conventional way of
Yeah,
parenting,
yeah,
vis-a-vis what changed after you started,
yeah.
when you did your coaching course, and what changes did you implement, and what were the kind of results that yielded out of it? Because that I think
Sure.
will be the essence of this conversation
Yeah,
today.
I agree totally. So, the first 6 or 6.5 years, as you said, it was the conventional way. And one example is that he got specs very early in his life. He started wearing specs when he was 5, and now it's more of our own parenting. I mean, our own mother's, dilemma inside, that how did it happen? I must have gone wrong somewhere. But टीवी ज़्यादा देखता होगा, मैंने नहीं ध्यान दिया होगा. That was the first thought. The second comes out of the fact that even if there's something wrong now, oh my God, he'll have to wear specs and all that. So I remember the first 5 months, because my fear was so much, my apprehensions were so much. These children are very sharp. The one thing that I've learned with working with children all these years is they catch on to your body language, your tuning like this. You don't have to even say a word, and he got his pair of specs, and he said that, okay, I told him that you need to wear them in school also, because otherwise you won't be able to see the board. And he said, nodded his head. But as I found out 1 month later, that he wasn't actually wearing them at school at all, because he was afraid that the children would make fun of him. And not a very uncommon thing. I mean, children, mothers who have faced this probably would know. And even as a mother, now where did that come from? That came from me primarily, because when I used to take him out for a social event or something, to a party, even to a child's birthday party, I used to take out those specs and to put it in my bag and say, okay, abhi to chalega, matlab you will, not even do without them. And the moment I shifted my perspective to really sit down with him and say, okay, what is it that you feel when you wear these? I mean, he was 6, of course. I really didn't ask him this question in this language. I said, "Aapko kaisa lagta hai? Matlab, what is it?" And I shared him a story of my school, that, when I got braces, then how was it for me? And shared that. And I said, okay, so Nalin, what is it that you are like, what is coming out of the story that Mama just told you? He said that, that everything is good, and it depends on how, if you were happy wearing them, so that's what matters, something like that. And from the next day onwards, from 2 3 days onwards, I saw him that he started wearing them and continued to wear them. So that was my first trigger, actually my first point where I saw the real, change coming in. And there are there's stories and more stories, but the very fact that I think, I remember a particular incident in school, and he came back, and he was looking quite visibly upset. And by that time, I had formed a little bit of my toolkit as to how to work with him when we are facing situations. So I looked at him, and we said that, okay, just asked him, how was your day? And so typically at that age, you get slightly more longer answers than you get when they have become teenagers. That's a different story altogether. So I'll come to that in a little while. But I did get a line or two, but I did see that he is troubled about something. And then he immediately asked me that, is it okay that he goes out to play with one of his very close friends, living nearby? And, so I didn't respond to yes or no, but in the matter of conversation, I said, probably no. We've just come back from school, so maybe have your lunch and whatever. So he slammed his bag at the door, and came back saying that, I'm very I just did that, and this said that it's nobody in the world, something about not understanding or something like that. So I made him sit down. I said, okay, now come, let's sit down and let's talk about this. I said, okay, what is it that you're really, what is it that you're really feeling right now? And are you, are you up, I can see that you're like, very angry and frustrated. Is there more to it than I'm saying, or some other things? He said, yeah, I'm also very, very irritated and sad. I said, okay. So he said, and I said, are you also feeling disappointed that Mama is not letting you go and play with your friend? He said, yeah, and for that, I'm really feeling very, very, bad about you. And because I wanted to really go and play. So by the time, because I had, validated his emotions, not disregarded them, and validated them and identified them for him, what happens, it's actually a very scientific process, is that the brain, our limbic system, this amygdala, it's just simple words, the emotional center of our brain, it gets all these funny feelings, and all of us get them, that we feel mad, we feel horrible about certain things. And then the moment we're able to give it a name, like I'm feeling bad, sad, irritated, whatever words, cognitive words, in that age he had little vocabulary, but okay, as children grow up they develop more of that vocabulary. They are able to label them, and the labeling aspect of it, then when they are able to label it, it comes here to the prefrontal cortex, which is called as the PFC, which is the thinking center. So the moment that happens, that emotion actually subsides. The moment you're able to translate it from that emotion to the word. So in that little time, in that 2-3 minutes of conversation, by asking him how he's feeling, rather than telling him that, okay, I mean, what he's feeling or what he should feel, rather not even not asking him. Usually we end up telling them that you should feel bad that you threw the backpack on the floor. You should feel bad that you are sitting there not talking to me properly. You should feel bad that you're screaming at me. You should feel bad that you're saying that you want to go to a play as soon as you've come back from school. You should feel bad that you're not eating your food. So all that. So and it's not easy because you're working yourself, you're doing 10 things yourself. To reframe what you're thinking comes as difficulty. And the moment you do that, after that, you don't leave it at just that, because it's important that they do realize that such behaviors, like sometimes it's okay to do this, to name them. To name it means to tame it. You name something means to tame it. But they must realize that the next time something like this happens, like he obviously had some problem at school and that's why he was taking it out at home, but we must help our children develop the problem solving abilities, that next time it happens, how will he manage it? So then we sat down, and I asked him again. I said, did something happen in school, Nalin? Did what was all well? So he said, this happened, that happened. The teacher scolded me while the other child was talking, and it felt really embarrassing. And then she made me sit at the back of the class and said that you will not talk to anybody. So it was all becoming more clearer and everything, but he wouldn't have come out with it just like that if I'd asked him when he'd come back from school, because he didn't do it. And so then I said, okay, the next time something like this happens, how would you think you can handle it and look at it? And he came up with his own thing. He's a 6-year-old. It's beautiful to see them coming out with things. I can do this, मैं ये करूँगा, फिर I can do that, I will come back and do this. Maybe I'll take, our dog, Jerry. He said, maybe I'll take Jerry for a little walk, and, I'll take 3 chakkar kaat ke, I will come back and then sit down. I will feel better. I'll feel hungry, more hungry, and then I will do something. So, it just started as examples like these. And of course, and now as he's 17, and there is other things that we are challenging. I'm sure those, will also come up. So, yeah.
True, very true. That's a very, very powerful example that you have shared. That how by changing your perspective, you are able to bring out the change in the child. And when we start treating them as individuals, and not that because you are a child, so you don't understand all of this. But the moment you start telling them that, look, you also have your own thoughts, you also have your own perspective, you also have your own emotions, and then you kind of work them through that whole process. I think then the impact happens. But so as you said that as a teenager the challenges are very different, and these days the children are way too smarter than parents. So how have you been effectively able to use the coaching for the teenager that he is today?
So, this is a very, very intriguing and interesting question, and something that, I mean, of course, my main interest has always been my own child. But then as it happened, it also became the whole issue of, working so that lots of other parents all, get to be able to experience teenage. And I think the moment I stepped into the fact that became a teenage, child's mother, I also kind of looked at it in the same traditional way that we all are used to looking at it. Oh my God, the terrible teens have started, and this will happen. And I had been warned. It was not that I had been warned. I have elder sisters who have older children, and I had seen them going through that journey. And so it was right. Evidence was all there on the table that yes, things are going to happen. Things are going to change. Um, Fortunately, I think I had done a little bit of my homework in advance and to be able to be prepared for this. And there are certain, of course, tools and skill sets that I use, which are fundamental to this thing. I mean, they are a framework. But in short, I think I would just focus on a few points that uh, the the bottom line remains very much the same as you also just shared, that they are their own they have their own identity. Just because we have given birth to them, they really don't, like that whole famous poem by Khalil Gibran, that we have given birth to them doesn't mean they are us. They just may be a part of us, but they actually are a living being, a totally unique, different being. And once you really start imbibing that in your heart and understanding it truly, that they have their own destiny and they have come here in the world for a mission which is linked to yours, but it's not yours. They have their own lives, and they have their own way of thinking. They have their own trajectory and their own, and they will go through their ups and downs. We can cushion them as best as we can, which is also debatable how much we must and how much we let them learn from their mistakes. But it's the important thing, I think, with teenagers is to be able to really establish that rapport with them, to make them clearly see that you're not judging them. Their whole defense mechanism just comes up so strongly with the moment they see you in that judging space. And it's not that we do it deliberately. Most of the time it's very unconscious. Our body says it, our mannerisms say it, our whole uh, tonality at times says it. So it's not even words, it's just the way we would approach a child and say, okay, so have you done your homework? And he'll say that no, and you'll just give one look and say, but why not? अभी तो सुबह से you saying that कि पढ़ रहे हो तो क्या कर रहे थे अभी तक? And you'll end it at that. So now my usual way of doing that is that he talks about school, and he says that there is, now he started coming up and saying that, okay, there is, would you want to ask me about my homework, what is happening in school? I said, yeah, if you would wish to share, I would be most happy to hear. But in the beginning, it was there was fortunately a time that was fixed up very early in life for him, that okay, this is the time that he would sit down to study, and that was also fixed by him. I asked him in the day, what is the time that would feel comfortable for you to devote about 40 minutes to sit down and to really go over what has happened in school, so that you feel comfortable the next day in school, and everything is sorted out, and would you like it that way? So he said, yeah, I think I would like it that way. So he fixed up a time for himself, and he's sticking to it till now. So that's the good part. But as he's growing up, he also wants to fight that out, because he wants to say that, why should I stick to that that time that is being set? So we had a gentle talk about it, that who set that time up? So he said, I did, but I still don't want to stick to that time. I said, fair enough. I mean, how else would you like to go about it? So he said, I would like to fix up a different time at night. Now I would like to study at night. I said, okay, that suits you better, then try it out and let's see how it works. I mean, see how it works and let me know if if it's working well for you. I'm most happy, whatever works for you. So then when they look at you and saying you're coming from a space of non-judgment, you're really listening and valuing what they're saying, then that rapport, it kind of slowly starts uh, forming. And then, I mean, I can almost read in his face, even the other children who come to me, in their face, that they look at you very, suspiciously. Should I or should I not tell this thing to this person? Will I be judged? Will I be kind of, held to be called irresponsible, that you don't have a sense of timing, you just while your time screens and this? Or will you be asked that, what are your options? What are you thinking? How can we do this? What have you thought about this? What's the long-term aim of this? So when they are asked these questions, even if they don't want to think about it at that time, they will shrug their shoulders, but you know that it's made an impact. They will go back, they will think, and they'll come back to you and say, okay, I thought about it. I will do this, and I will do it this way. And that's my thought. And then if you want to make a suggestion, you can actually do it. It's the right time to do it. Then, or that, yeah, and I would add that what I used to do was this, something like this. So if that works for you, well, great. I mean, you can take it from there. So it's tricky, and it sometimes seems almost manipulative, but it's the way to go, because they are at teens. You see, their whole body, their physical, biological, hormonal brain is developing. A brain development does not stop till the age of 25. And this PFC has not developed fully at all at that age. Even if you're talking to a 19-year-old, you would think that अब तो ये लंबा चौड़ा इतना मेरे से बड़ा लंबा हो गया, ऊँट जैसा हो गया, so he would have, his brains there. But actually that thinking center has not fully developed. So they are more prone to take risks. They are more prone to really getting into habits where, we wouldn't even be able to stop them, and lots of other things. Their sleep cycles change, lots of things happen. The only way we can be with them as an ally is to be able to walk with them on that journey without kind of alienating them to the fact that आपसे बात ही ना कर पाए वो. So that's one thing, that that rapport, and that can be formed by really listening well and by no judgment. And I think also, the second thing that's really helped me is helped in this whole thing is that to really have an awareness about where is this temper or where is this mood coming from in a child. It's very important to know that, okay, is it coming from uh, what I said, or is it coming from somewhere else? And it's like, the incident I shared earlier with the little child. But they are no less. They are also affected by everything around them. It's just that
Right.
their mannerisms are different now. They feel awkward sharing. They don't come and hug you, and they don't sit in your lap and cry. But it doesn't really mean that they don't feel it. They feel it as bad. So, but you have to
True.
wait for the right time to really hug them even. And even that hug is welcome if it comes at the right time and it's coming at the right stroke. So I would say a couple of these things really help,
Right.
to listen
So,
without judgment and hold that space for them.
absolutely. So, so here I'm listening to a coach and a parent. Now, I want to ask you this question: that has there been a moment where you said, "Damn the coaching, just be the parent," and what I say is the way. There is no other way out to this. Have you been extremely stern about it? Where all these tactics of whether you call them as manipulating or coaching them, or treating them as one individual goes on, and it's like, okay, boss,
Sure.
I'm the mother, listen
Yeah.
to me. Does that happen? And
Sure.
if so, how do you deal with that?
It has happened. I wouldn't deny it. There is no denying the fact that it does not happen. It happens all the time. And it used to happen more than now. The difference is that I have got far more awareness of my own blind spots. And I would say that really I have become a much better human being by having this real gift of being given this beautiful responsibility of, uh, partnering with another individual to raise him up. I would not even say parenting totally now, because then my view has changed about that also. But yes, many a times it just goes back to the fact that, see, it's very tempting, because one, it's I am also we are all on a time cycle. We are all doing something all the time. So I am also busy. I'm doing my own work. Then there is things that are happening. I have like about 5 minutes with him, because he's also not ready to give me more than that at that time. So when I'm talking to him, or there is this whole temptation to say, Nalin, right now this just needs to be done. No argument about this. But I would say that the awareness is higher now, that even if I do it, I don't know, somewhere along the time, either my hardwiring has become like this, that when I come back and sit in my office after some time, I would say, that wasn't what I would have wanted to
The
have
coach,
done.
because the coach
The
comes in,
coach is
the
alive
coach
also. Yeah. So I'll like kind of call him or give him a call from here only. I said, look, Talon, let's just, we have this thing between us. Let's just reset. So let's reset, rewind. Because I used to do that when he was younger. So he used to make a mistake and I used to say, all right, reset buttons we have, rewind, just do it again. How does it matter? And used to feel very comfortable with that the space is given to me to make mistakes, as many mistakes as
That's
possible.
wonderful. That's a very good technique, for the child also to realize that it's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
As long as, we learn something from it and we kind of reboot and restart from there. That's a great technique. Yeah.
So we used to have this, the actual stopwatch, which I use for my coaching sessions, but I used to play it with him. So he used to do something and I say, okay, see, I'm setting it back to 0. We are back at the same time as we started it. So wahin par ho aap, it doesn't really matter. You haven't lost anything. So now he remembers that. So I tell him that, okay, Nalin, reset. Mama is resetting because I think I just lost it at that time. I was too busy doing something or thinking. And he'll just kind of, he won't respond very affectionately because that's their way. I know he will not. He'll just say, on the phone and say, so, but I'll say, okay, probably in the evening when we meet up, please think of something, how this can go, because I would say that it is important for me. So, it is important for me and Papa. And I would like you to think about it. And I would like you to come up with your own suggestions of how we should go about it. So yes, I kind of slipped many times. But I think that the more the awareness comes to you, not only because I'm a coach, but also if we also as parents start believing in the fact that again, that whole belief that these children are there's nothing to be fixed about them. Like we don't have to really sit down with that whole judgment and that tarazu sitting there all the time, that we are there who are responsible for them, and without us, so nothing can happen and nothing can move. We are there to support, and we are there in that journey as very important partners. But their life is theirs, and ultimately, if we don't teach them those thinking skills, and actually we are doing them a disservice, because tomorrow they have to go and face the world. Then what will happen?
Very true. Very true. Nobody is going to be mumming them when they go out into the real world. True.
And yeah,
that is so true.
That is, yeah.
So, you made a remark that, it is a responsibility that you have, or it's a partnership that you are in to nurture another human being, and not really call it parenting. Yeah. I mean, I just, caught it there. So if you could throw some light at what exactly are you saying, and why not to use the word parenting, and what is the other term that we could consider that?
So it's a very personal choice. I mean, it's just that I just like the word partnering with another human being much better than parenting. But it's a very personal choice, because somewhere I feel that if I use the word parenting, I still go back to my own preconceived ideas, and it's difficult for me. So it's almost like in NLP, in coaching, we use this anchors for ourselves to keep reminding ourselves that my role is this. And also because I happen to have a husband who is not a coach, who is not totally a part of this journey, as even in the thought process of it. He's come a long way, I would say, and I appreciate him a lot for it, because it's not easy, especially to kind of from the kind of childhoods that we all have had, from the place that he comes from, the background he comes from. It's not been easy for him to adopt what he is doing now with Nalin. And many a times he's tempted to just throw in the towel and say, sorry, I'm not a part of this. I'm just telling him this, this is not done. So that's why with him and in our house, we try and use certain different words so that we are all reminding ourselves that we are all work in progress. We are not perfect. No way are we perfect, or no way have we got it, so to speak. And it's only a way. There might be 10 other ways which work for other people, other parents. So, like a coaching approach might work well for me and my household, and it does work for a lot of other people, children that I have worked with, parents I have worked with. And but then some people work on it like 25%, and they'll say the rest of it we still want to go by the way that we are used to, which is fine, which is totally because there are our stories, our narratives, and the way we like to deal with them. So that is why I think I just uh, choose to reframe it for myself so that I can keep remembering it more than him, because he's used to do it, because now since he's 6, and now it's almost 10 years that he's used to this style of talking at home, that he'll be asked questions for everything, he'll be asked to reflect for everything. Nobody will give him a straight answer. Should I do this? What do you think? How would you like to go ahead with it? What will work for you here? What are the options? So he gets tired of it also. It's not that sometimes he doesn't revolt. He'll say my mother is weird because she doesn't ever tell me what to do or what not to do. I have this whole mother who will just tell me think, you know and and I don't want to do that. I just want you to tell me straight, can I do it or can I not do it? So that also is a challenge at times, but
Yeah,
then
so
we.
actually, that was my next question to you. That as you said, that sometimes it works, sometimes it may
Yeah,
not work. And
yeah.
so, what have been the what is your son's approach to this whole partnership concept? And one, of course, you shared that he says that why can't you just tell me, because a child looks for that comfort. So, I mean, do you use a combination of the conventional parenting, or the a lighthouse parenting vis-a-vis the coaching approach? Is it always the coaching approach? That is one question. And
Hmm.
taking cue from the statement that you made, that your husband, because he's not a coach, and most
Hmm.
parents are
Yeah,
not coaches, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
only a coach or a an NLP practitioner or somebody who's a trainer when it comes to all these, who will understand these techniques.
yeah.
But how was your husband's journey? Because
Hmm.
that is a very essential part of your motherhood journey. Because if
Sure.
you use a certain approach, but the
Hmm.
partner is thinking in a very different manner,
Hmm.
then how do you come to a consensus? Because the child will get confused कि
Yeah.
मम्मी कुछ बोल रही है, पापा कुछ बोल रहे हैं, what am I supposed to do? So
Yeah.
what those these kind of dilemmas, and how did you deal with all of that?
Okay, so very early in our parenting, between my husband and me, we decided our so-called roles in terms of looking at Nalin's life, and uh, yes, I think it was a very unconscious to start with decision that it would be me who would kind of take, because as I shared with you that in the beginning it was difficult for us to even come to terms with the fact that his personality is slightly different from what we would have said, that okay, a child is talking, laughing, and talking a lot, and we wouldn't see that happening. Now my husband is by far a very straightforward person, somebody who's we've all seen those people, we see them all around us, talks and speaks normally, and he'll just be in a group and start talking. And so he did find it a challenge right in the beginning, that okay, how am I going to be dealing with this little one who's come into our lives, as precious as he is to him, but he was quite challenged. So I think I took it upon very early to say that let me see how to go about this, and let me see what are the ways, because I was clueless myself. But I said okay, because he had more responsibilities of work at that time, I said let you take care of that aspect, and let me take care of this aspect in more ways than you do. It's not that you won't have a role, but maybe let me take the more proactive role as far as his parenting goes. So from the beginning, it was in whether it was his studies or whether it was decisions regarding him and all, I played a more proactive role. But as he got older, I did introduce him to an approach that was working with Nalin. But at that time, it was clearly just about Nalin and not even about other children or parents or whatever, because I hadn't even started using it with them. But I did say that, when we do talk to him like this, and when we do open up a very inquiring space from him, and when we do, reflectively ask him that what is it that he's thinking, then I see he opens up a lot more than really telling him what to do, because then he wouldn't even respond at all. If you used to tell him what to do, he used to just nod his head and say, okay. And that is not what I wanted. I didn't want him to just be a mute respond to what we are saying. So that is why I had to open him out and get these responses out. Sometimes it was very challenging because he wouldn't even respond to those questions. So I had to frame the questions in a way that I got even a yes and no as an answer. Like I played 20 questions with him. I would frame the questions and he would just say a yes or no. But then slowly he learned that, okay, this is the way that I'm being communicated, and I've been asked for my advice, I've been asked for my observations. And I think my husband got an idea that this is the way what is working in this house. And the child is growing, he's blooming, he's doing well at school, he's becoming happier by the day, and he's somebody who's excelling in all possible ways. And then the school is also recognizing it, that yes, something is changing in this child from within. So I think the proof of the pudding really lies in the fact that, where it, what is it. So that is how my husband started understanding it. But I wouldn't say that even today it's like 100% this thing. He still wants that, we still want that there are things, coming to that part of your question, that no, a coaching approach does not work in all situations. We are his parents, and we do realize the fact, and every parent I think must realize that fact, that we have responsibility, and we also have a sense of real apart from the care and the concern, we also have this whole idea that, okay, how a thing may work versus them, because of the sheer fact of experience, the fact that I may have seen something in my life working in a way and he may not have. Having said that, I think the approach to that is what I am trying to highlight, that it's not that I wouldn't point that out to him. I would, and we do, and I do it. But it's just that I take into account and cognizance that what does he think and say about it at the outset? What is it that he's really challenged about? And he himself would probably share that this is something that I don't know. I'm confused. So please tell me. And which is where obviously then I step in, and or my husband steps in as a an adult in that, and saying that, okay, considering you don't know and you are confused about it, would you like us to tell you more? So and he will say yes. And once a person says yes, whether it's an adult or a child or anybody, you have got an accountability partner with you. And then you
You're
ask the
more
person,
receptive also.
yeah, you're more
More
receptive.
receptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can ask them for accountability, that now that you've understood it, now you've heard us out, how likely are you to do this way? I mean, so he says that, yeah, now that I've understood, I think I'll do it this way. And you just ask him the next question to seal the deal. And how can we keep you accountable? How will you keep yourself accountable? And he'll say, okay, I'll do this, and you can also do this. You can also check on me once a week, about it. So we've got
Right.
our thing. We know that he's only told us that we can check on him once a week. So it's easier. It
Right.
doesn't cause a strain in relationships, and people don't. So screen time also, we ask him how much, and then he places an accountability, and he says, okay, this is it. And then he says, all right, and if that does not happen, then what will keep you accountable, and what is it that you will like to tell yourself, that if I haven't done this, how would you like to pay up for it? I mean, in terms of the fact that lost time. So he says that I will then not do this for 2 days, and this is what I will give myself this punishment. Like, okay.
So basically, you are, I would say, creating a thinking mind,
Yes.
and you are letting the person evolve in the best possible manner by making the person think, and not, so you're making him respond, you're not making him react. Or the same goes for you also, and we have a comment on Facebook that you're basically empathizing. You're
Yes.
trying to understand his perspective over here. But
Yeah.
this also brings me to a question to you, Himani.
Sure.
um, I think this question is more to a coach than to a parent. That uh, he was 6 when you started, and by the age of 6, they start understanding a lot more, and then as they grow older, so maybe the 6 to 11, 12 is the age where you can still kind of deal with them, and then the teens, the terrible teens coming. But before 6, you have the terrible 2s and the terrible 3s, right? So what about that age? So which age do you think, obviously not everybody is going to become a professional coach, but
not required.
but the perspective that you shared, if one has to involve that, how do you do these thinking question and answers with children from the age group of say 3 to 5, or 2.5 to 5, when they start comprehending a little bit?
Sure. I think it's much simpler in fact then, because they are just such a beautiful malleable stage, and but the same rules apply. I mean, they are also watching you and modeling you, and more in fact at that age. So everything that mama does, if mama wears a sari, so you see your daughter also, she'll want to wear that sari and wear that bindi like you. So that modeling is so much then and more at that time. So following the same example of modeling, now if I am talking to a child, and if I supposing I'm standing up and the child is also standing up, I know the height difference. Now if I don't bend down and reach the level of the child, I will probably be acting like that whole superior or whatever, that adult talking to my child. So a very simple act of even talking eye to eye contact is the basis of starting a coaching approach, or whatever you like to call it. I mean, it would be the basis of showing that 2-year old that respect that he or she deserves. And trust me, they understand it. They understand that right now I am being spoken to, and my mother and my father are giving me that undivided attention. So I am being given that this thing, and which is what they imbibe with themselves and other people as they grow up. It could also be something like, two fruits are kept on the table, and say, okay, which one would you, what is your preference today? What would you, I mean, with younger children, we take their name more, that what would, Tanya like to have today? And she says that, it's apple. Sometimes as parents, we say that, yeah, but then yesterday also you had apple, and maybe you could also have this. But then if we've asked a question, we may as well respect a choice. Or out of clothes, it comes with very small things. I mean, it is about the fact that, okay, and what would you like to wear? I mean, and what would you like to start studying with? Okay, it's study time. What do you feel like studying right now? So she says English. Saying, okay, maybe we just may ask, and maths comes later. She says, I don't like maths. But most parents would feel very upset at that. Oh, why don't you like maths? Maths is so important. Maths makes you this thing. So we can inquire more about this thing. What is it about maths? When we do maths, when we do 2 plus 2, or whatever we are doing, what is it that Tanya feels here? Okay, let's break it down. And in the conversation, we find somewhere along the time they'll give you a hint. When I'm here, then this happens, and that is why I feel. So then you again, and with small children, we just make them these feeling cards, because their vocabulary isn't very developed at that time. But it's good to help them start developing their PFC at that young age. Research is now showing that if you really want, you can start even at 3, 4, that PFC starts developing. So if we want, we can actually place feeling cards in front of them. So what does Tanya feel while doing maths? She will look at that picture card and she'll say this. So, and you may or may not name it, because that doesn't matter that much at that time. Say, okay, the next time Tanya looks at this and looks about maths, what would you like to replace it with? I mean, what would you like to see instead? आप क्या दिखना चाहोगे? ये वाला कार्ड कैसा लग रहा है? So she said, this is much nicer, pretty है ये, बहुत pretty है. So see, okay, would you like to feel this for maths? She said, yes, definitely. And how can we do that? So then she'll come up with her own ideas. Something will work, something may not work. And then you can put in your own ideas also. Maybe if we, start playing with fruits instead of actual numbers, how would it help? And I'm sure as a mother, I mean, I see you doing a lot with your daughter, and when you share those posts on Facebook and every place else, we all have our creative ways of doing that. So I think it's not rocket science at all. It's just about allowing them to that space, that okay, that you are respecting them for again, that the fact that there is nothing broken about them, or they are not incomplete in any way. They're just mini versions walking right now, mini human beings walking right now, and they will take their own sweet time in development, and we are their thinking partners. We are there. we are
Absolutely.
we are holding that space for them, that very safe space. And yes, this is something that is there, that it's not that we are not holding a safe space, and we must keep reminding them that your parents, we are there. If anything happens, we have your back. I mean, it's not that we've just left you in the woods and saying that whatever you feel like doing, you think for yourself and you do it. You can come back to us at any time and think and validate what you're feeling. If you're feeling something and you're not sure of what you're feeling, we are the ones you can come and ask and mirror back to, because we are those people. You'll come back without any judgment. We'll just hear you out and say, okay, this is making sense to me, this is not making sense to me, but okay, maybe for you it is. So how would you like to go about it? And very often you'll find them asking you that, but why isn't it making sense to you? And then you can put forward your point gently, that why, because this is, I mean, or you may also share your own vulnerabilities. What has really helped me is to share my own beliefs with Ellen, to say that I feel scared about certain things. I used to, because my own beliefs about parenting, my own beliefs about losing people I love has been this. So when they hear you sharing your vulnerabilities, they in fact are more, feel much more closer to you, because somehow they believe that parents, they are perfect. They just won't, they don't have any, they are not people
Imperfection.
who are, they don't have any
True.
problems. They are always just saying that aise hota hai aur waise hota hai. So when they hear you sound like real human beings, they'll say, okay, fine, she's also
True.
human.
So we have a comment from Savita who's saying that I particularly liked, the fact that there is admission to what you said, that both the child and the parent are all work in progress. So that surely lessons our authoritative disposition, exactly what you just said. That, when the child knows, and those good old days where storytelling was there, where you would use your own examples to tell. Like, I remember I was always the bad one when my brother had to tell stories to his daughter, that, boy used to do this. I saw this film. I said, hello, why do you always make me look, one who was a spoiled one? But, there's a very valid point, Himani, that you raised, that many times, children don't like certain things. And we as parents are, we take that as a
Personal.
matter of pride. कि अरे ये क्यों नहीं आता है, इसको आना चाहिए, and so on and so forth. And I remember, I think Vanya was about 2 years old, and when numbers were being introduced to her, and every time I brought her the board activity of numbers, and she would just find an excuse to get away with that. कि नहीं, मुझे numbers नहीं करने हैं. So maybe the first time I thought that maybe it was just by chance उसने बोल दिया. Second time, third time it happened. My husband tried the same response. My mother tried the same response. In the school also, I asked, she used to go to a play school, that, does she have any aversion? Or, okay, aversion is too strong a word, but
Yeah.
is it that she doesn't like to do numbers? Okay, nahi, wo karti hai. Okay, so then the school also said, okay, we'll probably do a little more. And then, what we did, we had a do-play house. So and she started walking more comfortably. We had started, like taking her up and down the stairs. So we started counting the stairs with her. Every time we went up and we came down, whether me or my husband, we started counting. And she found it very fascinating. And then obviously, as you said, that instead of looking at numbers as in 1, 2, 3, 4, we brought blocks. I brought in puzzles of different numbers and everything. And the trick worked, all of a sudden she was comfortable with numbers and, anything related to that. So yeah, so I think, Himani, today's conversation has been very, very fruitful, to understand the perspective of a parent which has, about 17 years experience, and how effectively, you did not let the baggage of your parenting, which, from your mother's side was probably limited, but, as you grew, you did not carry that legacy with you. You shed the baggage at a very early age in life. And not only did you do that, you also worked upon, your spouse to be able to understand the right way. And, it's wonderful to see that how you are shaping your son. And I'm sure, a lot of us, would have got a lot of insight. I have made a few notes for sure. That's why my eyes are going here and there. I was jotting down a few points because I am obviously a new mother in this, in this entire journey of motherhood. But
And a very, very, very mindful and a very creative mother, I must say. As I said, I keep seeing your posts and seeing what a delight it is to see mothers these days being so cognitively aware that, yes, they have to really work with their children on these other things, other than, of course, our traditional academia that we are all anyway
true,
going into.
very true, very true. In fact, today only, um, we soak almonds. So she said that, Mama, can I help you? I said, sure. So I'll keep maybe two aside for you. So she was, constantly at it. So what I was noticing that not only is she peeling her own almonds to eat them, but at the same time, the attention, the focus, the
Mm.
determination to make sure that the peel is out,
Yeah,
and the motor skills, everything in one go was getting developed over there. And I said it's in a
absolutely.
good way. I mean, if in the fun manner, if the child is
Absolutely.
learning so much, I mean, it makes life so much easy for me. But yes,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of us, the newer parents do realize the importance of changing the conventional way of parenting and not being very authoritative. But at the same time, I think it is very easy to swing to the other side, because of
So,
the um, the frustrations that come in because then the children don't listen to you. And at that time, I'm sure, everybody says, okay, I don't want to use any technique. I just want to be the
yeah,
parent that I am. I want to be that, the authority on this whole thing. But
yeah.
Himani, absolutely great, wonderful speaking to you. A lot of insight today you brought in. I'd like to share another comment that has come in that,
Yeah.
I love your comment that parents are also human and they also have fears. And I'm sure this will make children understand that they can share their fears with them also. Absolutely. That's a very
Absolutely.
powerful point that you made.
Absolutely. I have,
Share your
yeah,
inhibitions with them.
absolutely. And to just to your point that you were just saying earlier, that sometimes it just goes out of hand, out of even parents to say that no, nothing is really working. I think in our country there is still an inhibition to reach out for help. I strongly believe that whichever help, whatever channel you want to reach out to, be it your school teacher, anybody, even a friend, but do reach out. Don't kind of hide things in the closet that, oh, everything is fine, and yeah, the typical response that हाँ वो तो बच्चे हैं, वो तो ऐसे ही करते हैं. So understand that if there is a problem deeper than what it you can handle, then reach out. And because at this time we are shaping, they are molding themselves, they are really developing. Later, of course, we can work with children at any stage, adults at any stage, but it's just more easier now because right now they are building up their, as I said, their prefrontal cortex. So whatever ideas, thoughts, beliefs are going into them are going at this stage. And from my own experience, I know that it took me years of really working on myself to take out those beliefs, to take out those fears that yes, this is not going to happen in my life, this is not a reality, and then to rework. So if children can really get that help at the right time, in the right place, now that we have it, maybe in our time we didn't have so much of it, so why not, and they
True.
deserve it, they really
Absolutely.
do.
Absolutely. So Himani, I have two last questions before, we wind up this very, very interesting conversation. The first question is that till what age, can a parent make those corrective changes? Should they have been in the conventional mode of parenting? That is one. And second, your piece of advice to all the mothers or the parents who are watching us or who would eventually watch us.
Sure. So for the first one, I would say that as I said, according to neuroscience, any age, even up to I would say 25, is when the brain is still developing. So you still have scope because the brain is ready to receive. The PFC has not developed until the PFC is not completely developed. The prefrontal cortex, this part, thinking center, because that's when beliefs start getting solidified. Like as we say, that matter gets like almost there. It's not that after that it doesn't change, then also neuroplasticity ensures that you can still change throughout your life. So I would say for that question, I think anytime you realize in your life that maybe I can shift my approach a little bit, start listening a little more, being slightly less judgmental, ask more questions. In fact, you'll find your job to be easier and more relaxing, because you're actually helping the other person think for themselves, and you're not taking the entire load on yourself to decide, to deliver, to also being so much in the process that you're not even enjoying the journey. Enjoy your parenting. Yeah, it's there, they're your children. They will grow up well, they will eventually have a life of their own, but you will be the ones thinking that why did I lose out on my parenting time that so much. I could have enjoyed it also. So I would say anytime, whenever you get that awareness from whatever place, please start at that time. It's never too late. Of course, when they've grown up a little more after that, then they would obviously not rely on you, then they would rely on other places to get their inputs from. That's a different thing. And the advice definitely would be this, that that there is, as I shared in the beginning, that they are truly they are our family, they are a part of us, they are very very dear to us, because they are our children, they are our blood, they are somebody who we actually given birth to. At the same time, we have to keep this healthy recognition that we are not them and they are not us. They are a separate, different, unique, uh, complete human being, and they have their beliefs and identity of their own, and they will go and grow up to be their own unique self, and in which we are playing a very important role in shaping them, but we are not them, and we are not totally responsible for shaping them. So that is what I would just like to say. So we can play a
Wonderful.
role, and a wonderful role at that, and have fun in it, with it also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we are not them, they are not us.
Mhm.
We need to
Yeah.
understand this. We need to understand that we are in a partnership with them to nurture them. And if for some reason we are unable to do so, if we are finding it difficult and challenging, seek out for help. The help could be internal, the help could be external, the help could be professional. But make sure that you enjoy the journey of parenthood. Make sure that you and your spouse think alike when it comes to nurturing children, so that you do not give out confusing signals. It's not that I am a parenting expert. I am also learning, as I'm getting matured in my parenting journey by all these conversations that we have with each other. So just trying to summarize what Himani shared with us today, and
Beautifully
the
done.
essence of all the discussions also that we've had so far. Many of you have come here and spoken that it is important to seek advice, seek guidance, treat the children as an individual, treat them with dignity, treat them with respect. Of course, we do lose our cool, but then it is also important to equally acknowledge and accept that yes, we made a mistake. If we expect them to acknowledge and say sorry to us, there is no big deal in us saying sorry to them. So today's conversation was indeed very, very enlightening. And once again, Himani, thank you so much for being with us. And we will be soon back again with another interesting journey of a mother. Till then, stay tuned. This is Ekta Saigal Malhotra signing off at the Motherhood Club Talk Show. Thank you, Himani. Have a great
Thank you so
evening, and it
much.
was
Thank
wonderful to
you.
have you here.
Wonderful to talk. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.